Welcome in. If you're a return viewer, thanks for giving me another shot after the last video I posted. And if you're a new viewer, thanks for clicking the video. I know that 40 minutes is a lot of time to ask anyone to donate to watch somebody stick plastic to other plastic, so I really appreciate it. I tried something new with the opening this time. I did a little intro showing the full build and the completed process to let you guys know, like, this is what the build's going to be. This is what the video is going to be about. If that's something that interests you, cool, buckle up. We're about to get into it. If not, you don't have to waste that 40 minutes. You can just, keep on keeping on. But I appreciate you guys stopping in either way. Enough of that, and let's get into the build. I took this cheap Dinosaur that I got in a bulk pack at the thrift store, and I cut the head off of it. I cut the tail off of it. I cut all the feet off. I switched the body around. So it's facing the other direction, where his tail is his head and his head's his tail. But that just makes it look more hunched over and more like a dog than a dinosaur. I'm replacing the head with a cow head, and I'm replacing the tail with a smaller dinosaur tail, not the Stegosaurus tail, just a regular dinosaur tail. I cut the snout off of the cow and added the dinosaur mouth back to it just to make things a little harder on myself, I guess. I don't know. But I'm trusting the vision. I'm trusting the process at this point, and that's what I thought was best. And I think it ended up working out okay. I still have to make some minor adjustments. I do a lot of reverse work in this. Like all this milliput that I'm putting on the back, covering this up, it's going to get covered up by the pack. You're never going to see it. But I feel like this is kind of like you're getting two builds in one. If you don't want to build a pack beast and you just want to build the beast itself, I didn't skimp out. I showed you the full process on both of them. And originally I did that because I was planning on having this where I could remove the pack and have both separate, and I could maybe add something else to it later, like if I wanted to put a saddle on there or whatever. But I put the pack on, it scratched the paint off, and I just realized it wasn't going to work that way. So I had to commit, glue it down. But here I'm taking the mouth back off after I've cut it down the middle, and I'm going to add pieces of armature wire to kind of make them stick further out from where they were, to make them a little longer. I really want this mouth to be open, and it was hard to do that. I wanted to be able to put teeth in there. That's where the toothpicks that I cut up earlier are going to come into play, and I couldn't do that with the small gap that I had created from just cutting it down the middle. So I had to take them back off, and I'm going back in with more milliput. I used a fair amount of milliput and Vaseline to smooth out all the surface and everything. But let me tell you, if you're going to use Vaseline to smooth out the milliput, make sure that you're cleaning after it dries. Clean the model, clean the figure, get all that residue off of there, because no paint is going to want to stick to that. I learned that the hard way too. I just had a really tough time. This is the first build I've had that I had so much trouble with the painting process, as far as getting the primer to stick. And it's maybe because it was cold, maybe because of the Vaseline. There was a lot of different elements, and in the end it ended up being okay, but it was a struggle for me for a while. So here I'm putting in those pop marks. So little heads up earlier for those people who have the aversions to it. I just wanted to make the skin look textured and rigid, and maybe it had some kind of flesh-eating virus on there. This thing doesn't really start shaping up until you see the paint job on it, because milliput just doesn't really show anything. So I'm going to add those teeth in there, and these turned out better than I thought that they would, honestly. I've seen people use toothpicks for teeth before, but I've never actually done it myself. I've never been able to get it to where it looked quite right, and they still kind of look a little goofy, but based off of how I picture this beast, I think it's going to work for it, because like it's not a traditional animal where it's like going to graze on, just grass, and it's not a carnivore. It's going to dink, get that tooth straight there. He's going to graze on minerals. So if it looks like he's been chewing on rocks, it's because he has. Now I'm building a crate that's going to go into the pack on its back. And originally I didn't know what that little centerpiece was. I just threw it on there because it kind of looked like a keyhole, like you would use to lock it up. But during the process of building this, my belt on my dryer broke, and I had to take it apart. And that was 2 of those were inside of the dryer, so they hold the screws in place to keep the front bit of your dryer on. So I learned something while I was doing this. So I took out a bunch of different bits that looked like they could be crates or containers that would hold things. Like if you're going to be carrying around a lot of cargo and you're going to be trading, you're going to need a lot of different things to hold all the materials. You can't just have a bunch of loose stuff, which I did throw a lot of loose stuff in there too on the top, just to add a little bit of extra detail. But a lot of it's going to be in containers, and some of it you can see like what the container is holding, like from the top part of it. Some of it's, just a sealed up crate. I just wanted to break it up and do as many different types of containers as I could. These were just pin tabs, and I threw some beads on top of them and wrapped some string around them to give them a little bit more detail. Here I'm adding some latches to this crate, and those are from a Core water bottle. I find them on the ground all the time. These were beads that I think they were from Target. I got them at a thrift store, but I think you can buy the big pack of them at Target. And they look like vases or pots, like pottery. So I thought I'd add a few of those in there. And here I'm going to make some crates. These are going to be open top crates, so you'll be able to see everything inside of them. That first one was made out of plastic from a clothes hanger. Just one of the cheap ones that they don't take off the clothes whenever you buy them at a big box store like Walmart or whatever. The rest of these are going to be made out of popsicle sticks. And I try to make these different too. Like I put different bottoms on them, even though you don't see the bottom. Like a lot of this stuff, like I said, I do work that's unnecessary, and that's probably why this build took as long as it did. But I mean, at this time, I'm building these crates not knowing where they're going to go on this pack, and not really knowing what the pack's going to look like. I mean, you'll see whenever I get to the pack building process. Like I tried 3 different ways. It was just going to originally be a square on the back, and I ended up adding sides to it. I had wood on the sides that I ended up taking off. Like I wasn't really sure where these were going to go, so I didn't know if you were going to see the bottom or you weren't. But either way, you get to see the whole process. So here's a fun one. This is a failed Bangarang bot. I started to build it and realized that the bottom, she was just a little too thick. The legs were wider than the base itself. So I scrapped it and threw it in my bits box and thought maybe one day I can use it for something else. And lo and behold, here I am. Ripping the arm off of it to add it to my pack beast. But unfortunately, it didn't have a hand, and unlike the other ones that I built that had the magnetic, interchangeable thing, I just decided this one's not going anywhere. It doesn't need all that fancy stuff. Like it's just going to be strapped on the back here as an accent piece. So instead of guns, I'm just going to go with the claw, and that's just a couple of small beads with a little bigger bead at the end for the fingertips. This arm itself wasn't fully fleshed out. Like it had some panels on it, but not all the way around because I didn't finish the hand. So I have to add the panels to that. And I think this is the last time I'm going to be using white EVA foam. It just doesn't show up well on camera. And then the 1mm hole punch rivets that I use are white, at least on one side of them. So it just makes it harder to see. Like you can see it here, like it's harder to see whenever it's white on white. White's already hard enough to show on camera. So I think I'm just going to use colored EVA foam from now on. I'm jumping into building another crate here. This one's going to kind of look like a chest. I'm using popsicle sticks and a piece of a tab that I got off of like a breath mint. I don't know if it was like Mentos or something. It was something I found in the trash. So the goal here is for it to be open like a jar where you can see inside of it, but still have the lid and all the sides. I used EVA foam to make the straps, and I wish I would have used plastic card or something a little thinner. It ends up, you don't see much of it anyways, and I pull off a fair amount of that on the back side and stuff just so it'll sit flat. And then the little metal piece on there was broken off of the Hot Wheel that I used for the last build for the hovercraft. And here I'm just gluing a bunch of different pieces together to make smaller containers that I'm just going to mix into the pack in different areas to try to add more detail. These are buttons that I'm just gluing beads to, and it's going to kind of simulate a fruit basket in the end. I end up adding more buttons to it to give it some depth, and this is another fruit basket that I'm making. It can be any fruit. To me, it kind of looked like grapes, and I throw some garnishes on the side with some small glass beads, but it can be anything. This is a post-apocalyptic world in a sci-fi, it doesn't have to pertain to the same elements and same rules as our world. It can be whatever you imagine it to be, but in my mind they look like grapes. This is just a barrel that I'm going to be adding to the pack just to bulk it out, and I just tried to make some identifiable pieces that you would be able to look at and say that's a barrel, but it gets buried and you don't end up seeing it anyways. Now I'm just adding some detail to those crates that I made earlier. These are going to be open tops, so you'll be able to see in there, and this is just some scrap metal. At this point, I'd like to shout out Betsy at Junk Drawer Studio. I was partially done with this build, and I really needed some smaller things to add to it. And I saw her do this. She took some toothpicks and shaved down the ends of them to simulate the cork that goes into the stem of the wine bottle. And then she put the toothpick into a bead. And I'm going to do that with several different kinds of beads. And then I'm going to throw them into a crate. So just a quick shout out to her, because I was really struggling to find different things to put into the crates to break it up and not just have the same. I mean, all the crates would have just had scrap metal in them, or all the crates would have had the same things inside of them had I not watched that video and saw the different things that she was doing. So that was helpful. And I feel like a lot of people take things from other people and don't end up, giving credit where it's due. And I don't want to be that person. So if you haven't checked out Junk Drawer Studio, go over there and give her a watch. She's got a lot of good stuff on there. But moving on, here I'm making the crate for them, and it's just popsicle sticks again. This time I wanted to break it up into sections so that I could kind of set the bottles in there on display instead of just having them laying flat or like laying on top of each other. I wanted to look a little bit more organized, and I did sit some EVA foam in the bottom of it and glue it down just to give it a little extra lip so that they raise up and you can see the bottles and not just them stuck down in there and you only see the tops of them. It's at this point that I realized that I did not make enough, and there's an empty hole there. So I went back and really quick just made one more. I thought that it would be okay to have a kind of a gap there. It didn't need to be completely full. Maybe they sold one or somebody snuck one. I just free-handed a battle axe head onto a piece of plastic card, and I'm cutting it out, and then I'm going to add it to a toothpick to make a battle axe, and I'm going to do that 2 more times. There's not a lot going on there. I'm not a great artist, so like the drawing skills and me cutting these out, it is what it is. So it'll be this time that I do the call to action where I say, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please consider doing that. They've got new things on here like a hype button. I don't know what that does. Let's find out together. Hit that thing. But really, I do this for fun. And that's why, these videos aren't super regular. I think the last one I did was a couple months ago. I'm not doing this every day. So I'm just getting them out when I can. But I'm gonna keep doing this, and if I keep getting 90 people watching it and 5 people interacting with it, that's completely okay with me. I'm not out here trying to be the next trash basher or scratch builder, but I'm doing this because I enjoy it, and if you guys want to join that process and watch me build, then that's enough for me. I filmed this on a iPhone 6 that I got off of eBay. I'm doing this voiceover sitting in my bedroom closet, and you can probably tell, it's not high quality stuff, but hopefully it gets better. Anyways, enough of that. These are battleship pegs that I cut down, and I made them to look kind of like a beer bottle. I hadn't seen anybody else do that, so I'm coining that one for myself. Here I'm taking a one of those water beads, and I did see Junk Drawer Studio do this, but I cut it again and added a little handle to it. So I don't think that I saw that one anywhere else either. So I'm trying to do some things that are out of my own head, outside of just the build itself. I don't want to take everything I saw from other people and do it, but that, a lot of what I do is going to be from what I saw from other people doing. So these are smokeless tobacco, or dip if you're from the South like myself. And I found these. This is not a promotion to do any kind of smokeless tobacco or tobacco in general. But I found these in a trash can, and I like the raised letters on them, and I thought they'd make good signs. So that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting them up, and as you can see, it's going to say buy, sell, and trade for the trader. I really liked the idea behind this. I wish that the letters were raised just a little bit more. I was really wanting to be able to paint over them a lot easier than I did, and I wanted to be able to go back over them with a dry brush of like metallic or rust, and kind of show those raised letters and make it look like the sign had been a little worn out. And it didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to, but after the oil wash was put on there, I think it turned out all right. This is an idea I've had in my head for a while with the letters. I've been collecting those can lids whenever I see them, and planned on cutting them up for a different sign for a different build that I still haven't got around to, but hopefully, one day I'll find all the pieces that I need for that one particular build. If you scratch build the way that I do, it's like you never start on something until you have all the pieces that, make sense for you. So anyways, here I am doing the fruit baskets, and I'm taking more buttons and adding them to the bottom of it, and then I'm wrapping it up in an old piece of cloth. That's actually an old t-shirt that I finally retired because my girlfriend had enough of it. I bought it and wore it a lot, and it had holes in it, and so that shirt's going to be used a lot in this build, and it's just a way for me to keep it out of a landfill. I could have very easily tossed it in the garbage, but I just feel like that's, sacrilegious for what I do. Now I'm taking those canisters that I made earlier, and I'm stringing them together, and they're gonna kind of dangle from the back of the pack. And here we are, finally assembling the pack. Feels like I've been talking forever at this point, and I understand if people are getting bored and nodding off by now. So I've seen this done a million times by a bunch of different people. I'm not going to credit one single person for it, but I'm about to take a bunch of blocks, and I'm going to drape some cloth over it, and I just want to kind of make it look like there's a bunch of stuff underneath a tarp. That's the goal here. So different things like the blocks, the tubes, the beads will give it, a different shape. And I'm going to do that 3 different times. And then I'm going to glue them all together. and that's going to create the pack that goes on the back of the dinosaur cow beast that I've already built. So doing a little black paint with Mod Podge and water, and that thing is hard as a rock after it dries. Here's where I didn't really know where I was going, like the direction I was going in. I didn't know that I was going to be adding 2 other pieces to the sides yet, so I was just going for a square on the back, and I was going to throw a bunch of junk underneath it. But then I realized how difficult it was going to be to make individual items to go underneath it to bulk it out. So I decided, well, I need to do that 2 more times so that I can have, enough stuff on the back of it bulked out. And then I'll just add those other pieces in there as kind of like accent pieces. So this is kind of redundant, and I do the same thing again. So I'll probably just use this time to talk about my next build. I was challenged by Jody at Scrap Forge, the Broken Universe, to build a Merbot. And if you guys don't know what a Merbot is, go check out Scrap Forge. He's doing a build right now where he's building a Emperor Titan for 40K, and if he gets 1,000 subscribers, he's going to give it to somebody. So that's pretty cool. But I was watching some of his videos, and we got to talking back and forth, and he challenged me to give it a shot. So I'm going to do that. He builds on a little bit bigger scale than I do, so I'm going to put my own spin on it. I hope that is okay in his eyes. But anyways, we're going to get back to this. Here I'm putting some EVA foam underneath those tarps, and then I'm going to score it down the side to make it where it'll bend easier. And then I'm going to add these pieces of wood that I end up taking off. So like that just goes to show you, I left it in there. It's part of the creative process. You do things and then you realize I don't like that, and you end up ripping them off, once you get going another direction. So I bulked it out with some more of that air foam clay stuff, and then I start adding the t-shirts pieces over the front and the back. I'm bulking out a little bit more with more Jenga blocks, and then I'm going to put more cloth or t-shirt over it to cover it up and make it look like there's a tarp there. So that's pretty much it for the pack itself. I put a bit of aluminum foil around the beast, and then wrapped it in that air foam, and kind of formed it to that so it would sit directly on the back, and that's how that came about. And now I'm finally adding in all of the pieces. And if you think that it took a long time in this video, imagine how long it took me in the process of building this. I mean, I build like maybe 2 days a week, if that. So this video felt like it took forever. So I'm adding in all these accent pieces, the crates, the robot arm. I added in some of those bottles, just loose up there, like maybe whoever's been carrying this guy around's been drinking, or maybe they recycle. I don't know. Here's the big crate, and I did throw in some poles up top, and I added in some pieces that I didn't build, like that gas canister, which is part of some kind of Lego kit. I don't know if it's real Lego, fake Lego, the Lego that y'all get mad if people use it in their builds. I got it at a thrift store, so I have no idea. If I use the wrong Lego, please forgive me. But I've got several others that are just like that, and I'll probably use those too. So here's some chain that I'm connecting to those fruit baskets so that they'll kind of dangle from the side. I had a really hard time figuring out where to put those, and I thought if you hang them off the side, it'll look like it makes sense, because Anywhere else, it was like they'll get knocked over, the fruit will roll out. It's still going to bounce out, I'm sure. If it were really walking down the street and loose fruit just rolling out the top of a basket like that, I can't imagine that they would all stay in there, but this looked the most believable to me. Finally tying it all down, man, using that rope to secure all these things in place. And hopefully I cover every area that needed covering, give the rope access to all of the pieces, and nothing can just fly off of there. This is just butcher's twine, and then I'm using some really, really thin thread for the other piece of rope. I wanted to break up the rope a little bit. I didn't want to use all the same. And I mean, imagine painting that little bitty thin thing, and especially with my painting skills, that was a pain. So I wanted to try something different with this build, and I think I accomplished that at least. Here I'm going to be adding some more rivets. I barely used any rivets in this, and I didn't use a whole lot of rust. I used a fair amount of rust. I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's my style, man. I like that rusty, clunky junk. So I try to use it where I can. Now, here's the prime process. I hated everything about the plastic on this Dinosaur, as I mentioned earlier. This is me going back over it with Mod Podge and black paint to try to get that primer to stay on there. And then I dry brush it. Basically, all of the priming that I did was pointless because I ended up going over it with a black anyways on all of it, every bit of it. So not just the beast itself. I'm trying to break up some colors here, adding a little bit of purple and red and blue to give it that bloody undertone. And then I'm going to go over it with I don't exactly remember what color this was. It's some kind of pink, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously. It kind of looks like white in the video. But hopefully after a few more coats, it reads the same way that it reads to me, which is more of a fleshy, pink. But everybody's got different opinions on colors and what they look like. I don't know if you guys remember the dress. I'm not going to get into that, but the dress is blue. Anyways, I sped through that on camera. That took a lot longer, and a lot of the wrinkles on that did the work. I kind of just did my best to follow the lines that were already there. And the face, I mean, I'm trying to just go around the pop marks. I'm going to go in with some red and blues to deepen those colors and make it look like, there's sores and not just the same color. And then I'll do the horns are going to be like a beige. The teeth are going to be yellow. The eyes are going to be yellow. And then I'll end up going over the back portion of it on the spine with a bright purple. I hate talking about the painting process. I mentioned it in my last video. If anybody watched it, this is just not my cup of tea. I'm happy with it in the end. I would not watch this as a tutorial on how to paint anything. Anybody who knows anything about painting is watching this right now and saying, obviously, we're not watching this as a tutorial. So, I'm using basic craft paint. I'm not using any of the Citadel paints or anything fancy. I mean, look, man, I got most of this stuff either out of the trash or at a thrift store, or I found it on a walk with my dog. I'm not spending big money on paints. I'm totally okay with using the cheap hobby paints, the folk arts of the world. And the same goes for my brushes. And I'm using the fidget pop thing as a palette. This is what you're gonna get here. I did finally spring for a new cutting mat. You might have noticed that I had a bigger cutting mat in the intro. I felt like it was time to upgrade from this Dollar Tree cutting mat that I've been using pretty much the whole time. Yeah, that's right. I'm selling out. I got a craft mat from Hobby Lobby, so look out. Anyways, here's the oil wash. I'm using a black oil wash on the Beast, and I'll use a brown oil wash on the Pack, and then I'll use a black and brown oil wash on the base, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. But after the oil wash dried, I went back in and kind of touched up some of these spots and kind of gave it a little bit more of a highlight. It all just looks the same. It all blends in. But I feel like, why am I talking about what I'm doing on the screen? You can see me painting. So I need a name for this guy. Anybody who's bothered to stick around this long must really be interested. So maybe you can help me figure out what a good name would be. I'm actually pretty terrible at coming up with names for things. So if you guys would leave me a comment and tell me what you think I should name it, that would help me out a ton. Also, what kind of content are you guys looking for? Like, do you like this voiceover stuff, or would you rather have just quicker, like 10-minute videos? I don't know. Like, I try to leave everything in there. I make these videos as if I were consuming something that I would want to watch myself. And usually I watch videos and I'm like, man, I really wish they would have left more of the build process in there. And now I'm starting to realize why they don't, because nobody's going to watch a 40-minute video of somebody doing something. And then it's like, well, I could have split this up into 2 videos probably. I could have done the Pack Beast, the Beast itself, and then the Pack itself. But, by the time that I realized that, it was already too late. I had 80 plus videos that I had on my phone that I had to go through and edit down into 40 minutes of content. So look at that dry brush there, like just hitting all those highlights and showing all the different pieces. Sorry, getting back to it. So, yeah, I mean, like, I know I don't have a huge following. Like, I got 50 followers, I think. But, like, and I'm thankful for every one of them. Like, this is not a cry for help or anything. I'm just saying, like, I want to make the best content that I can, not just for them, but, like, just because I have 50 followers doesn't mean that only 50 people see it. Like, I had more people view the footage, and a lot of them cut it off, within the first 10 minutes because it was like, I don't know, maybe it's so slow. So, any suggestions, like, I mean, like, don't be rude, don't hurt my feelings. But, come on, give me something to work with here. I could do those just time-lapse videos where I don't talk and it's like super fast cuts and it's over in 10 minutes and you see the whole build. But I don't know. I did this to, show off the whole process and hopefully, like, somebody gets something out of it, and maybe build a bit of a community here where we can, like, bounce ideas off of each other. I know I've got some friends that I talk to about this kind of stuff, like Jesse, Giant Crafts. I asked him, like, hey, man, what are some things that you would build, like small, tiny things? And he gave me some suggestions, like to things that I would add on to the pack. And he gave me his 2 cents. I would love to have that community here on YouTube where I could, like, reach out to another person. And I'm meeting some people, like, I've made some friends on here. But I would like to have a bigger community with bigger ideas, and, like, maybe even one day do, like, a challenge for like a group of people to, I don't know. This is fun to me, so I want to have fun with it, and I'm trying my best to figure out ways to, one, make content that people want to see and interact with. So, like, who better to ask about that than you guys? And then 2, I don't know, maybe grow a community where, like, we can have fun together. Like, I'm not talking about, like, something revolutionary here, but, like, that's what this is all about, right? For me, it is. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to, have fun. Like I said, I do this 2 days a week, and that's, like, not 2 full 24-hour days. It's like My girlfriend goes to work at 5 o'clock and gets home at 10, and I stop to eat for an hour. So like maybe, you know, less than 10 hours a week. And that's if I feel like it after I get off work, before. It's just one of those things that like I do in my spare time whenever I have spare time. Like obviously I could do it and not record it and still have fun doing it, but like the point of this for me is to meet some people that maybe I can talk to about it. Like my friends aren't into this stuff, my real life friends, my friends that aren't on the internet. So anyways, that's kind of my rant for this one. And I mean, I'm still painting, the tarp, I painted like an olive green. The ropes, I painted a burlap. The metal stuff, I painted rust, and I did like a light gray on the thinner rope. And I painted the canisters on the back. Some of them I painted rusty. Some of them I painted the burlap and like a light brown. And some of them I did like just a gunmetal gray. And then I'm going to go back through and paint the fruit and all the other individual things like the bottles and the cups on the back. And then I'll get back into the sign itself and I'll paint that as well. So that's what I'm starting on here. I'm just going with a yellow outline for the buy sign, and then I'm going to do like a taupe and a rust red for one of the signs, and then I do a very, very light blue for one of the other ones. And then I let those dry and I come back and paint the letters on them while I paint, some of the other pieces. But I'll just talk about the sign a little bit. So the idea was that these signs were taken from other signs, and they just cut the letters out that they needed. So that's why they kind of look mix and match, but they also look cohesive. So like they robbed 4 letters from one sign, and that's why there's the 3 letters in buy are the same as the A in trade, So that was the idea behind it. They just kind of took what they needed when they needed it and created this big advertisement on the side of their pack beast. So that's the idea behind that. Nothing too big brain energy about it. But here I'm just going back over all that rusty stuff with a gunmetal gray, and then afterwards I'll hit it with that wash and kind of dull it down, and then I'll go back over it with a very, very light dry brush of metallic silver. But I think it's at this time that everything starts to kind of come together and actually look like, a model instead of a bunch of junk that just was slapped together. Like, obviously the prime process is where, like, most people say that it comes together, and it really does. But like after you start separating those colors by blocking out or start separating the pieces by blocking out the colors and showing like what, I don't know, I just feel like that may not have looked like a bunch of apples in a basket until I painted them red. And then it's kind of like, oh, that looks like fruit. Here I'm going in with the letters, and I mentioned it earlier, but I'll talk about it again. Like, I just followed the lines that were on there. I didn't freehand this. It may look like it. I mean, I freehand painted it, but like I was just tracing what was already there. And, I don't know, like I really was hoping for a little bit more of a raised edge, because I'm not the strongest painter. I can read it, and if I saw it from a distance, I would know what it said. So it worked out from that aspect. But I was really hoping for them to be a little higher, raised up, so that whenever I did the wash, it would get down in there and really make them pop. And then once I hit it with a dry brush after that, it would really, really make them pop, and that just didn't happen the way that I wanted it to. But overall, I think it turned out okay. Like, I'm not mad at the way it turned out. I just felt like it could have been done a little better. If I was going to change anything about it, it would probably be the T in Trader and the E in Sale. I just feel like even after the wash and the highlights, they kind of just looked almost non-existent. Like the letters just kind of blended into the sign itself. So I may go back and repaint those, but like if I do, you guys will never see it. So this was a bold one for me here. I went with that blue and I colored all the pottery. I had a really tough time deciding what to color the pottery, because if I felt like if I did orange, it would look like it was rusty. And then if I did, the sand color, that would blend too much in with the base. So I went with this blue, the same blue that I used on the sign, which I actually really like. And I think it turned out pretty good, especially after I put this brown wash. Like, the wash got on it and kind of tinted it in areas and made it look not so just stark white, light blue. But man, I really like the way this wash went on. That's the first time I've ever used brown wash, and it got into the crevices of the rope, and it really made the rope look realistic, in my opinion. This is a really cool piece of wood I found on a walk with my dog, and I chopped it up and threw it on this base. And here I'm using something you guys might have seen somebody use before. I'm not gonna say what it is. If you know the name of that, you can put it in the comments. But it's sand, little bigger sand, a little bigger rocks, and then glue and water. Anyways, glued it all up, and now I'm dry brushing the mess out of it. And I'm going to dry brush it in like 3-4 different shades. This is not the first base I've ever made. It's not the best base I've ever made. Like, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, to be honest with you. And I almost forgot to even put the build of the base into the video. I went back. I'd already started doing the voiceover, and I went back and added it in there because I forgot about it. So it wasn't like something that I spent a lot of time thinking about. I spent a lot of time letting it dry, and it still stabbed me in the back and came up off of the base whenever I tried to glue everything down. So here's the dry brushing stage where I'm going through and kind of trying to get all those things to highlight and pop. And now I'm going to glue it all together. It's going to be a finished product. I add a rope across it. I was going to keep it 2 pieces, and I was going to make like a magnetic rope to go across the bottom of it, but those are just big dreams. And then I was like, I'm not even going to put anything on there. And then I watched the episode of Trent Miscast, and he talked about how he made something, and it didn't have a rope and didn't look like it was attached. So I went ahead and added a rope. So I went back and did a few things after I was really over this build and kind of done with it. But anyways, I'm going to cut the glamour shots, and I probably won't see you guys again.